Ever wonder what Ash's best Pokemon are? Or maybe if you already know his strongest ones, what his worst Pokemon are? Because, let's face it, Ash doesn't really have any bad Pokemon. While some may have been difficult to watch at times or having really low win rates, that doesn't necessarily make them bad. They might not be good, but I wouldn't call any of Ash's Pokemon terrible, as all of them have decent victories under their belts. A lot of the Pokemon that I previously thought sucked before researching for this video actually turned out to be pretty impressive due to them having fought tougher opponents. For example, I always hated on Torkoal, I still do, but even though he has one of the worst win rates out of all of Ash's other Pokemon, Torkoal did manage to deal a fair amount of damage to a legendary Pokemon, Registeel. So as much as it pains me to say it, I do have to give this annoying crybaby turtle my appreciation, but not really though, because he was still trash. Anyway, let's begin with what I think is Ash's worst Pokemon. And funny enough, it's the first ever Pokemon Ash captured, Butterfree. Reason being, Butterfree didn't really have any impressive victories. Plus, its only real damaging moves are Whirlwind and Tackle, and Whirlwind isn't even a damaging move. It did win against a decently strong Raticate, which is why I can't say any of these mons are necessarily garbage, since I do believe they all possess at least one redeemable thing about them. One Pokemon that doesn't really have anything going for it, but still managing to beat Butterfree is Ash's Muck. While in my heart, I do think Muck could have actually been pretty strong. We only saw it in a few battles, and Muck's only win is against a pea shooter that he just kind of fell on until it stopped breathing, which isn't actually a move but a gimmick that could be useful, but Ash never used Muck, so we don't know if he's good, which is why I can't really place him any higher. Yet I do think he is stronger than Butterfree, since that thing can only really put you to sleep. Totodile is a Pokemon that I think is fair to say, although it's cute being a Totodile, definitely should have evolved. Most of its battles Totodile won were against some pretty mediocre opponents, other than Harrison Sneasel and I guess that random Charizard. Scraggy is another Pokemon that I could see doing great in battles with more time, yet this Pokemon came from an egg. And unless you're Riolu or a fan favorite Pokemon, you're not going to get much growth in one series. It also doesn't help that it never evolved. Pidgeot, who returned right after Ash left the show, was pretty cool to see, but looking at its career, well, it didn't really have one. Yeah, it lost more times than it won, and looking at its only victories, it beat a Rattata and a Rhydon, which is actually a solid W. The reason Pidgeot is not lower is because it's now a Pidgeot, and one can only assume that this thing got some sort of buff since we last saw it, because when a Pokemon evolves, it usually means it gets stronger. Unless you're Torterra. Beating out Pidgeot by one spot is Unfezant, which I feel like Zach definitely overhated this Pokemon because after rewatching its battles in Unova, I don't think it was that bad. It beat two of Silas' Pokemon, who is a gym leader, and that alone I think is pretty impressive. Its losses are just, the usual, nothing super disappointing. I just think the hate is low-key unjustified, unless you just dislike Unfezant's design or something. A Pokemon who you can't hate is Oshawott. I love Oshawott in black and white, even if he's pretty mediocre, since he lost most battles and lost against a Pansear, which was a bit embarrassing even for Oshawott. He did defeat Silent's Pansage and Stefan's Liepard, so he's well equipped to handle type disadvantages, just not when he has the advantage. Maybe an evolution or two could fix Ashi's strength. I mean, Samurott could have been insane. Next is Ash's Apom, or Don's Ambipom. But yeah, since Ash used Apom when it was an Apom, I'm just gonna call it Apom. Ash's Apom didn't see a whole lot of big battles as it liked other hobbies, which is why he went to Dawn and then eventually Ping Pong. But when it did battle, it did pretty good, sporting an impressive 75% win rate. However, even with such a high win rate, its wins aren't anything to brag about. Most of them come from earlier on in the series, although at that stage, it was pretty good. Palpitoad, even though it has the best stats out of any of Ash's other mons, just statistically speaking, did alright in the actual show. Its victories and losses are nothing out of the ordinary, but it did defeat gym leader Elise's Zebstrika and a Stoutland, which is why he's slightly better than Apom in my opinion. Do you guys remember Ash's Primate? Well, if you never watched the original series, then you might not know about Primate. Anyway, he's here, and I always thought Primate was pretty strong from winning the boxing tournament and seeing it rage at Team Rocket, which then led me to believe as a kid this guy was going to be a powerhouse for Ash's team. Until I saw Ash give Primate away to some trainer who wants to do more boxing tournaments, and then there goes all that wasted potential. RIP Primate. Next is Lapras. Now, some might consider this a bit bold, putting a Pokemon that only had one battle with Ash above these other Pokemon that had a lot more experience. However, even though Lapras only battled once and didn't win, it did tie to Drake's Gengar, meaning that Lapras has quite a bit of power, yet we don't get to see how great that power is as Ash releases this Pokemon at the end of the Orange Alatar. Torkoal, probably my least favorite Ash Pokemon because of how whiny and annoying that thing was. Plus, it didn't really help that it literally lost every battle it had. But as I stated earlier, the reason this isn't Ash's worst Pokemon is because it went head to head with Registeel and looked like it almost could have won the battle. So that in and of itself is something to admire, even from a Pokemon like Torkoal. Boldore is next. He's a pretty solid mon all around. I don't have anything bad or great to say about Boldore, although I do think if it wasn't on Ash's Unova team, it may have actually fully evolved, as Ash had the most amount of Pokemon in Unova, and not all of them got a lot of time to gain experience. All these Pokemon, by the way, are like your most average Pokemon in terms of battling performance, and Noctowl fits that description perfectly. It's just a decent Pokemon. It took down a Haunter and Gengar in one battle, while also helping out in the Sinnoh League, yet it didn't do anything crazy. It really was just a cool shiny Pokemon for Ash to have. Snivy, my favorite starter, probably very likely due to Ash's precious Snivy, who I wish evolved, but yeah, Snivy has a decent 50% win rate with 12 battles under her belt, and nothing too special. It did defeat Trip Servine, but couldn't pull a Rowlet and defeat its superior self, pun intended. And Ash, please evolve your Pokemon, thanks. Quilava. Oh look, it's another Pokemon Ash didn't evolve. Although maybe it's a good thing it never fully evolved. Anyway, as a Cyndaquil, it did defeat a Skarmory, a Steelix, and even a Water-type Dugong. So those are some pretty notable wins there. Cyndaquil did randomly evolve when Ash brought it back for the Sinnoh League, in which he tied with one of Nano's Pokemon, so that shows you a bit clearer of where Quilava is at in terms of strength. Bayleaf, underrated as butt, taking down a Houndoom as a grass type, keeping a 59% win record with 11 total battles, and all around being a great mon. Other than it trying to get weird with Ash, that was just weird. We did not need to see that Pokemon. Leavanny, one of Ash's most underappreciated mons, unless you watch Black and White, and then you would know Leavanny won more times than it lost with the 57% win rate. Leavanny, like most of these average mons, didn't have any outstanding W's, but its losses were all pretty close. Plus, it's a third stage Pokemon, making it already greater than a good chunk of Ash's other non-evolved guys. Buizel, the most overrated Ashmon in my opinion, yet it is good, as it took down a Lucario, or well, tied to a Lucario, beat a Gengar and a Floatzel, but then you look at how many L's this man took, and you got a whole baseball team. Next up, Kingler, my boy, absolute Chad, carrying him in his first ever league, defeating this poor girl's whole team after evolving, plus it has a 71% win rate. The only reason he's not higher is, well, he lost to Misty Psyduck. Can you guys guess this next Pokemon? I'll give you a hint. It's an Ash Pokemon that should have evolved. Alright, you got it? Did you guess Gibble? If you did, you're correct, because this guy could have made Ash's Sinnoh team unstoppable. But instead, we got a little baby Dragon Shark who has a crazy Draco Meteor and did great in battle despite it being a first stage and having little experience. It even landed a hit on Tobias's Darkrai. A Pokemon we all want to see here is Gliscor. Even with a terrible win record, it still makes a great impression on us when we see it used in the Sinnoh League, finishing off Paul's Drapion, who was one of Paul's strongest mons outside Electivire, and for that, he deserves his place. Another of Ash's Sinnoh Pokemon, Staraptor, is here, beating out Gliscor by one spot as it had a more well-rounded battling career with a 55% win rate and KOing a few of Paul's Pokemon. However, this definitely is not Ash's strongest bird. Who's a fan of Donphan? I am. Although it only won 3 times in total and one was after it evolved, Donphan was able to take down a Frontier Brains Pokemon, that being Lucy's Viper. Here we got a cool turtle, Squirtle. And what do you know, he's a pretty darn impressive battler, with a positive win rate and taking out an Electabuzz as a water type mind you, even one of Brandon's Pokemon Ninjask. Just imagine if he evolved into Blastoise. I like Squirtle, so I'm not gonna complain. This is a weird Pokemon. It's gonna be Ash's Mr. Mime, a Pokemon who we saw Ash use in Pokemon Journeys, out of all series, where we see Mr. Mime seamlessly beat a Hariyama without even breaking a sweat, then forfeits the next battle right after for some reason. So I'm not really sure where to rank Mr. Mime, cause obviously it's strong, else it would be lower, but how strong? I have not a clue. So I think this is a good spot for the Mime. Next up is Glalie. This guy I was not expecting to only have 1 loss with 6 total battles, but 2 of them were ties. However, Glalie is still really strong, managing to take down a Charizard despite the type weakness. Now we have Pignite. Pokemon a lot of you guys probably weren't expecting to be this far up the list. He was low-key the ace of Ash's Unova squad if you don't include Crocodile. Yet the one thing that got this Pokemon to where it's at right now is the fact it one-shot an Emboar and a Heatmor at the same time alone in a double battle. with a fire type move. So yes, Pignite deserves a spot. Noivern. What? Noivern? This Pokemon should be way higher. Had it not been for it sucking in the Kalos League, that is, and the lack of battling experience Noivern got because it was an egg Ash received late into the XY series. I think Noivern is kind of a wild card here. I don't really have anything to judge it off by since its only win is against Sawyer's Doublade, so I'm just gonna assume that Noivern is actually really deserving of this placement because it's a Noivern, a decently strong dragon type. Now, I'm sure by now, unless you haven't seen Diamond and Pearl, you know how bad Torterra gets after it evolves, literally not winning a single official battle. But looking at its losses it receives after evolving, it did have to face some pretty tough opponents. Most being Pokemon Torterra is weak against, and his opponents being strong like Paul and Palmer. However, that being said, I would say his downside is not being able to take down those strong trainers Pokemon. Heracross, I'd say, is the better version of Leavanny, even with a lower win rate of 43%, yet its opponents were way tougher. It KO'd a Scizor, Gary's Magmar, Nando's Kricketune, and Heracross even faced Tobias's Darkrai, landing a hit or two before being pulverized into the 8th dimension. Time for Tauros, the leader of Ash's 29 other Tauros, who he caught in that Banned American episode with Guys with Guns. It's only strong for Tauros being able to beat Drake's Venusaur and tying with Frontier Brain Annabelle's pseudo-legendary Metagross. As for its losses, it only really lost to strong trainers like Drake, Gary, and Annabelle. One Pokemon that I thought absolutely sucked was Corphish, but turns out that I was wrong on this one. Because, you see, Torfish, while it looks trash, had over 28 battles in the anime and kept a solid 60% win rate. That's very impressive and all, but 2 of its victories is Corphish taking down Frontier Brain Pokemon, that being Tucker's Arcanine and Annabelle's Alakazam, which are very strong mons, making Corphish a worthy opponent. Now we have the second greatest Pokemon of all time, but for the sake of this video, he has to be nerfed to give respects to Ash's other hardworking Pokemon, and that is Big Strong Lord Rowlet himself. Using only 0.001% of his power, it defeated 2 dragons at the same time, its fully evolved self Decidueye, and Kukui's Braviary, who on paper should have destroyed Rowlet. But nope, he's Lord Rowlet for a reason. Next is Ash's best first stage Pokemon, Bulbasaur, believe it or not. While not having any super noteworthy battles, it did sport a whopping 71% win rate with over 30 fights. Hands down Ash's best first stage mon. Talonflame, the best bird. Not really, because Ash's Talonflame had 0 personality, but it's a cool design, and Talonflame's career was decent as it went head to head with Moltres, delivering some mighty blows before being taken out. And unlike another flying dragon type on Ash's XY team, it actually did good in the Kalos League, tying with Alon's Unpheasant and beating Sawyer Slacking. Right alongside Talonflame, we have the final bird of XY, Hawlucha, who in my opinion had way better defeats. Hawlucha took down Wolfric's Abomasnow and a Mega Absol. He was even strong enough to break free from a Trick Room with X-Scissor, somehow. Naganadel has finally arrived, and even if it only battled twice against Professor Kukui in the Alola League, we did see it defeat Kukui's Lucario and then losing to a Tapu Koko, which, I mean, fair enough, that's a legendary Pokemon right there. So, although that's not a lot to judge it off by, we do know it's strong. And come on guys, it's an Ultra Beast, the title is in the name. Gojo time, baby! Yes, I did just put him above Naganadel, but for good reason. You see, Gudra's true power shows in the battle against Clement's Luxray, which was a great battle, as well as before, where he KO'd Tierno's Wartortle and Raichu at the exact same time. Then in the Kalos League, you're probably thinking, oh, Gudra couldn't even win. Well, he did tie against Sawyer's Surpluff and lost to Alon's Bisharp, but not without setting up a Rain Dance that led Greninja to finish the job. At the end of the day, hate all you want, but he is a pseudo-legendary that's bulky and very strong. We arrive on Ash's best bird, this stupidly broken Swallow, but you might ask, why is it broken? Well, let's look at his battles. It KO'd one of its kind, picked up and threw a Donphan to its death, murked a Venusaur, smacked a Swampert, torpedoed a Wishcast, popped a Scizor, and of course we can't forget about how it absorbed Pikachu's reflected Thunderbolt, creating what is known as Thunder Armor, a gimmick exclusive only to the anime, and yeah, it's pretty broken. Next up, we have Ash's one and only mythical Pokemon, Melmetal. I will admit, if it weren't for Melmetal being a Melmetal, I would not have ranked it so high. Despite that, when Ash used him, he did pretty good. As a Meltan, it was able to KO a Duraludon and Zweilous at the same time, with the help of Rowlet of course. Then later, it took down Faba's Hypno and Kukui's Empoleon during the Alola League. Its losses you can't even complain about, as it lost to Gladion Savalli and Kukui's Incineroar. Speaking about Incineroars, Ash's Incineroar is next, although it never battled as one, sadly, which, if anything, makes his Pokemon even stronger for what it was able to accomplish. As a Litten, it defeated a Totem Pokemon Morantis, which, if you don't know, Totem Pokemon are more powerful than your average one, a Magmortar, Guzma's Scizor, then lastly Kukui's Venusaur, and Incineroar. Yeah, no doubt this man is strong. Bro did all that as a Torracat. We're just outside the top 10 best Pokemon Ash has, and coming in at 13th place, we have Lycanroc, who I think just barely beats Incineroar. I mean, it was the ace of Ash's Alolan squad. It has an exclusive Dusk form, plus its Hyper mode that is kinda like Infernape's Blaze ability rather than Ash Greninja. We also can't forget it clutched up and won Ash's first ever league against Gladion's Lycanroc. If you want to put Incineroar above Lycanroc, that's honestly fair. I just think he's better and has won a more crucial battle. But you could make the argument that Kukui's Incineroar is a more powerful opponent than Gladion's Lycanroc, so your pick. Both are about equally as good, I would say. Beating out Lycanroc is the more well-rounded Earth Pokemon, that being Crocodile, the ace of Ash's Unova team. Crocodile only battled 5 times, but only lost 1 battle, back when it was a Crocorock. Battle it won were against Pokemon like Beartic, Iris's Dragonite, Stefan's Lightbird, and Sock, so we can see that its wins aren't against trash Pokemon. I bet if Ash brought Crocodile in for the battle against Cameron, then he wouldn't have lost, but Ash caught so many Pokemon in Unova, he was constantly rotating them in and out, which really sucked for this reason. At the 11th spot is Dracovish from Journeys, and if you couldn't already tell, yes, all of his Journeys mons are in the top 10, besides Dracovish, because I think he was the weakest of the bunch. The reason Dracovish and Ash's Journey squad is higher up on the list than Pokemon like Crocodile and Lycanroc is simply because they got to the Masters 8, which revolved around Ash having to face the best trainers in the world. And since he ended up winning the whole Coronation series, becoming the strongest trainer with these guys, it only makes sense that they beat out most of Ash's other Pokemon. Also, some of these battles his Journeys Pokemon won are ridiculous. Starting with Dracovish, killing Iris's Dragonite, Clemens Diggersby, Elite Four member Drosnia's Noivern, Cynthia's Roserade, and finally Leon's Rillaboom. The only reason Dracovish is the worst Journeys mon in my opinion is because Ash's other teammates beat even more powerful Pokemon. Now we're finally in the top 10 with again a mon from the Kill Squad, and it's Dragonite. Now, if he hadn't sold in the Masters 8, he probably would be the best one, only beaten by Ash's stupidly broken fan service Lucario. Dragonite defeated Karina's Minchow and Mega Lucario back to back, while being dealt lots of damage by both, defeating Iris's ace Pokemon Haxorus while also being dealt damage by her Dragonite just before. Then Dragonite's only other victory comes from Leon's Dragapult. So while he didn't do so hot in the league, the wins Dragonite managed to pick up before make up for his drought in the league. Sirfetch'd is now up, and he was a lot better than I remember. Wow. Bro's one-shot Clemens Luxray, which, if you remember, Ash's Gruder had a challenging time facing it in XY. He tied with Elite Four member Drosnia's Mega Altaria, blew up Cynthia's Milotic, even landed a few hits onto her Garchomp, and then battled 2 of Leon's Pokemon, dealing significant damage to both, yet not being able to secure any knockouts. Sirfetch'd was low-key cracked. In 8th place is Ash's strongest Journeys Pokemon other than Lucario and Pikachu, and that is Gengar. Right off the bat, Gengar doesn't really have any astounding wins like Sirfetch'd taking out Mega Altaria or Dragonite taking out Iris's Haxorus. It's really just better because it has access to Dynamaxing, but don't let that take away anything from Gengar's accomplishments. Gengar beat Marnie's Grimmsnarl, Steven's Aggron, Leon's Inteleon, Raihan's Flygon, as well as tying with Raihan's Goodra. Most of this is done with the help of Dynamax, and the fact his other Journeys teammates can't do this automatically gives Gengar the edge. Now we have a Pokemon some of you have been waiting the whole video for me to talk about this guy, and that is Ash's illegal Snorlax. Now, if Arceus didn't nerf this guy in the later patch notes, he would have hands down be Ash's strongest Pokemon. But that was just a one-time thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm referring to when Ash commanded Snorlax to use 6 moves instead of the traditional 4. So why is Snorlax this high up without having fought any legendaries? Well, it's because of Snorlax's busted win rate. Just check this out. Snorlax coming in with a whopping 79% win rate with 13 official battles and only 3 losses. Then you could say, oh well, Snorlax didn't face any difficult matches like Surfetch'd, Dragonite, and Dracovish. Wrong. It beat Gary's Arcanine and Nidoqueen, Harrison's Hypno and Steelix, Frontier Brain, Greta's Hariyama, and Mediocre. Did you notice a pattern? All of Snorlax's victories I just mentioned are against trainers who have 2 Pokemon, because Snorlax doesn't just take down 1, but 2 before going down. That's how huge the gap is between him and Ash's other Monzes. So who then can beat Snorlax? Well, what about my man Infernape? Looking at Infernape's win record, it's slightly lower with a 73% win record, which is still amazing with 17 wins, 6 losses, and a tie. However, Infernape is unique, as it hasn't really beat any hard opponents other than Paul's teammates in the Sinnoh League. Yet Infernape did defeat Volkner's Jolteon and Ace Luxray, at least in Diamond and Pearl loses Ace. And Volkner, we know, is basically Elite 4 level in strength, so that and 3 of Paul's Pokemon in the Sinnoh League are some of his best feats as an Infernape. He did battle Moltres in Journeys, landing a few good blows, but wasn't able to defeat Moltres, which, I mean, is understandable. It's a fire type versus a fire type. That's gonna be hard regardless if it's legendary or not. I should also add, Ash's Infernape is no ordinary Infernape due to a seemingly extra strong Blaze ability compared to your average Blaze user, which is why when Blaze does activate, it usually ends in Infernape winning the match. Next is Sceptile, the best Pokemon with the worst win rate, sitting at a flopping 55% with total 30 battles. And no, most of his losses didn't happen after it evolved, it was before when it was a Trico and Grovyle. But the cool thing is about Sceptile is once it evolved, it became almost unstoppable. Taking out Frontier Brain's Spencer Shiftry and Claydol, battling with the Deoxys head-on, then beating Tobias's undefeated Darkrai, who at the point of Ash sending out Sceptile, Darkrai had already recovered most of its health back, even though it already battled 2 of Ash's other Pokemon due to it using Dream Mirror, which restores 50% health of the damage it dealt. So if you want to argue in the comments about whether or not Sceptile should be ahead of these other Pokemon, be my guest. But I'm telling you now, I don't think Infernape or Snorlax can pull this kind of stuff, hence the placement. Number 4, it's the Journey's ace, Lucario, the most forceful Pokemon gave Ash. Other than, I guess, Pikachu. Like, Pokemon loves this guy. I mean, it's one of the most popular ones, so I get the reasoning, but I didn't really love the over-the-top screen time given to Lucario compared to the rest of Ash's team, but that doesn't change the fact that this is now one of Ash's strongest Pokemon. Lucario sports a solid 70% win rate with 13 battles, 5 losses, and 2 ties. That all sounds great, yet that's not what makes Lucario number 4. It's who and what he defeated. Check this out, and here at this feats sound crazy. Lucario destroyed B's Ace Dynamax Machamp, Volcanor's Rotom, Raihan's Dynamax Duraludon, Paul's Gyarados, Cynthia's Dynamax Togekiss, and then her Garchomp, and got a lick-in on one of Leon's Pokemon, Mr. Rhyme. To be fair, Lucario did most, if not all this with the help of Mega Evolution, but I mean, look at those names. From gym leaders to rivals to champions, we got them all. And the most impressive feat by far is Cynthia's Garchomp, who, if you think about, is stronger than Tobias's legendary team, as she's still the Sinnoh champion. Okay, so what's number 3? Come on, how can any Pokemon be stronger than Ash's Lucario? So next is Charizard, the man, the myth, the legend. Charizard has done it all. Has a 72% win rate, took down a legendary Articuno, literally, murdered Blaine's Magmar, Drake's Electabuzz, Falconer's Pidgeot, and Gary's Blastoise. Charizard has 18 wins and 7 losses, but a few of those losses are Charizard refusing to battle, meaning his win rate could easily have been a lot higher. He is just all around the solid package, and one of the strongest Charizards in the anime, because there are a lot of Charizards that show up in Pokemon. Number 2 is any average Pokemon anime enjoyer's favorite Pokemon, Greninja. Definitely Ash's coolest Pokemon by far. As for its win rate, it's a little lower than Charizard, sitting at 67%. However, its wins are very good, beating Wolfric's Mega Abomasnow, Sawyer's Mega Sceptile, Alon's Bisharp, almost his Mega Charizard, but nope. Greninja, before even mastering his final form, was close to beating champion Diantha's teleporting Mega Gardevoir. I feel like some people overlooked that battle. Unlike Charizard though, Greninja has not defeated a single legendary. Yet I don't care, cause once in Ash Greninja form, it basically becomes as powerful as a legendary, and he did defeat that giant Zygarde statue thing, which is kind of a legendary, so I mean, I don't know. Plus, Greninja is definitely stronger than Lucario, since we see in Pokemon Journeys, Lucario can't even keep up with Greninja in a fight. Maybe it's biased, but I think Greninja deserves to be Ash's second strongest Pokemon. Now, for the #1 place, give it up for Ash's Pikachu, the world champ, the one to take down multiple legendaries, including Brandon's Regice, Tobias's Latios, well, it tied to his Latios, Latios Silvally, and finally Tapu Koko. If for some reason Pikachu being #1 doesn't make sense to you, he defeated Leon's Charizard, the best Pokemon owned by a trainer in the anime. Well, second best. I could talk about Pikachu's long list of other great defeats, but really, I'd just be wasting air at that point. He's the best, case closed. Here's the full tier list on screen that I made for this video to see where I think they should fall in their select categories from D tier to S tier. Yes, there is no F tier as none of Ash's Pokemon are F tier. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my list. I'm sure a few Pokemon could have been swapped here and there, so leave your reasonings in the comments, but all in all, I think I did a pretty good job for the most part. If you enjoyed my opinions, we're very close to 100k subscribers, so if you want to be part of helping us get there, that would be great. Thanks for watching, join my Discord, and until next time, bye bye!